had sometimes friends over, entrepreneurs, and just because of them, Lumos got successful. Why? Because they just said like, Andre, this is a blind spot. You shouldn't go that way because of these. I'm like, damn, if I hadn't talked to you, I would have worked on this kind of small problem for like the next 3 months.
Andrej, Safundzic, thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
Good, good. I'm in Bavaria right now in Germany with my parents and my siblings, and I'm just like enjoying my time with them. And yeah, how are you, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much. The last time we spoke, it was about, I guess, 6, 7 months ago. We were both in California, so definitely times have changed. But I would love to talk about your journey. Before we talk about this journey, we have to say you're working on a startup in stealth mode right now, Lumos. You've completed a seed round recently with Andreessen Horowitz as backers, which is fantastic, and I can't wait to do a follow-up episode when you come out of stealth mode. Hopefully, still when we have this show going, but I'm very, very excited for now to talk about your journey, to talk about your upbringing in Germany. Selling a company to the government, which is very an unlikely situation. Harvard, Stanford, you name it. Andre, take it away. How do you get started?
So one principle that I have is, so we as human beings are very loss averse, right? So as a human being, we don't want to lose. We want to, like losing is more dangerous than winning, right?
Yeah.
And that's why for everything that I do, I have a mental model to put 20% more risk on my decisions, right? I have a motto called "Screw it, just do it," like Richard Branson. And I think and then with a lot of luck and a lot of failures and a lot of screw it, just do it. You just like opportunities open up and then hopefully you grab them. And then you don't even need to be smart. I'm not smart. You just have to be sometimes a little bold and silly.
I love that. So I'd love for you to tell me a little bit more about your upbringing and how you go through your crazy adventures while keeping the screw it, just do it mentality within it.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Germany, in Bavaria, in a small village here. I have 4 siblings. I'm the oldest brother of 4 siblings. My parents came to Germany shortly before the war started in Croatia, and yeah, did my high school here. Then I went for undergrad to TU Munich, it's a technical university, and I really fell in love with social businesses, like with the tech for public good. So I started 2 edtech companies in Uganda first.
Wow.
It was about like kind of fighting youth unemployment with innovative ed technologies, and it's still out there. My co-founders are still doing that. And so that's how I got really interested to go to the East Coast, because at Harvard and MIT, there are amazing researchers in this space. And so then I went for a year, for my final year, my senior year, I went to Harvard and did a lot of kind of things there. I did computer science. And then I took a class at HKS called Digital Government. It's taught by David Eads. And so many cool CIOs from different governments, from Great Britain, from the States, from New York, came to the class and told us, the students, hey, this is how tech for public good works. This is how governments can be reshaped. Government is the biggest entity, the biggest company on this planet, right? Just the German government, for example, makes 100 times as more revenues than Uber in a year, which is insane, right? Yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Wow.
And so I was just like, I was always trying to like, how can I maximize my potential in tech for the public good? So I look into Germany and I saw like that not much things are going on there. And the Sheryl Sandberg of the German government, the chief of staff of Germany, he got elected in 2018, and he was really into digital transformation. So just like emailed him somehow. I found somehow his email and emailed him saying like, what do you think if I bring the 10 best computer scientists to the government and we work with you and you don't outsource to Accenture or IBM? And I'm not sure why he did that, but his advisor called me and said, my boss told me that you have an idea. What's the idea? And so we got a little bit of funding and built that kind of a sort of a fellowship at the beginning, where 10 people in the first year, and then the next year was 35 almost. People came to the government and worked with different ministries on very high level tech programs. And that was like how Tech for Germany started. And then after 2 years, the government bought us so that we
Unbelievable.
become the tech task force within the government, because outsourcing is always hard. So government said, let's buy you, let's be internal, and then we don't need to outsource. Then we can grow this from within.
Right.
And yeah, that's a story in a nutshell, how I try to maximize tech for the public good.
And Andrej, I have to go back a little bit to creating those organizations in Uganda, AdTech, doing good, helping youth and fighting youth unemployment, because it's a little irregular for a young entrepreneur to come and say, I want to do, first of all, I want to leverage technology and entrepreneurial passion to do good, especially at a young age, before going and, trying to build, a $1 billion company, and then doing it in Uganda, going outside of Europe, outside your country, and going there. What was the thought process there? What was the motivation to go and do all that?
It's again actually very simple, and it goes back to the screw it, just do it, just like let's go. I read a book called Poor Economics by two MIT professors, and they actually won the Nobel Prize, I think 2 years ago, and I read it like I think 10 years ago, and it really resonated with me. They said like how nonprofits sometimes don't work, like big NGOs don't work, and they said like what sorts of nonprofits are the most high leverage, right? And I was so like, wow, this is amazing. I was like, come on, let's try it myself. And then I had a friend in Uganda for some reason, and he had a connection to Ugandan high school. And then we just like came up with the concept of building school enterprises, which means we wanted to teach students how to be entrepreneurs themselves. And so we built businesses within schools where they kind of learned how to do all this business stuff, sold things, earned money for themselves, to have for school tuition. And basically then I flew over with 2-3 other friends, again, because of the book, because I had a connection there, because, let's do it.
I just love that. So, and then you transition. You took you took that final year at Harvard. You also spent then time at Stanford, also Stanford GSB, where we met. Walk me through some of those experiences. Very few people get to experience, both the technical university in Germany, Harvard, then Stanford for a master's, and then Stanford for MBA. How do you live through those experiences?
Yeah, every school is a little different, right? For example, TU Munich is you just have final exams in Germany, so you don't have homework, you don't have essays and all that kind of stuff. So basically, the final exams are really hard, but you have a lot of time to explore your interests in like through internships or through entrepreneurship. So TU Munich really taught me to like leverage my free time and do something like hopefully valuable. So that was kind of TU Munich. I went to Harvard because I met a friend from Munich, and he said like, I went to Harvard, and I said like, that's not possible. And I said like, he said like, yes, apply for the scholarship. I was like, damn, let's just like apply, whatever. So I applied. I got lucky. I always say I have a shitty last name. It was hard to pronounce it, so they said like,
we need practiced quite a lot. Yes.
Yeah. Then Harvard said we need diversity we need people with shitty last names, and so. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Dad, for having a shitty last name. So Howard was interesting. It was very artsy, very traditional. I need to say, more traditional than TU Munich and Stanford. Many people will go like the normal routes of, let's say, consulting, banking, and all that kind of stuff, which is very important. But I learned more to be like, I explored philosophy there. I explored kind of, government and all that kind of stuff, which brought me back to Berlin. Harvard brought me back to Berlin for exploring government because it was more traditional. And Stanford is insane. Like Stanford is more my vibe. Like, you come there, we started this company. I didn't want to start a company. I was just like, I want to relax a little bit after Tech for Germany. But then a friend and I started hacking in March. And then suddenly one friend says like, hey, I'm going to connect you to we do something with emails. So that he said like, I'm going to connect you to the VP of Gmail and this. And I'm like, damn, crazy. Then like, hey, here is a little bit of funding. Hey, here's Y Combinator. And long story short, it's not that we are the smartest people. It's not that we are the best people. It's just like the ecosystem that just like, those are giants, and they carry you on their shoulders. And that's why you have so much support to do something valuable. So that's in terms of Stanford. It's just like it was the most entrepreneurial school. So those
Andrej,
are
I
the
have to
three.
say, one of the things that I keep hearing you come back and allude to is this a network and community that you've built around you that has inspired you to do these things. Whether it's the experience back in Africa, or then your friend going to Harvard, or when you're at Stanford and getting exposed to all these wonderful people. And I have to say that I completely agree with you. I think that surrounding yourself with the best people that will motivate you and will carry you when you need to be carried, and you will carry them when they need to be carried, is one of the most important elements here. Talk to me a little bit about why you're even an entrepreneur, because you know already at such an age you've had so many different initiatives that you've gone through, so many successful ones. I mean, real successful ones at the degree that people sometimes work their whole life to get to, and you bring this level of passion and excitement that really goes through this video. So please share with me a little bit about why you're even an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I've rarely heard this question. Why? So I have an equation for myself, and I want to maximize three things in life. Number one, the number of people I touch times the quality I make in those people's lives. So which means like improving page load by 0.02% for a billion people is nice, but it needs to be both, right? And then the third
Right.
part is feeling in peace with myself, meaning working with friends, not with colleagues, having autonomy, waking every day and laughing, and fooling around. And I just found so far that like through startups, I can maximize this equation in the best way. I'm not saying that this is the only way. I just mean like for me with my kind of characteristics and with my kind of I'm for example sometimes too unprofessional, I would say, to work in bigger companies, which is actually it sounds funny, but it's actually true. So that's why with my flaws and weaknesses and my strengths, I think entrepreneurship is kind of the best way to fulfill this equation that I have for myself.
And what does it distill for you? So obviously, the screw it, just do it is a huge part of for you to be an entrepreneur. What are some other pieces that in the back of your mind you're saying, okay, this is what I constitute as being entrepreneurial in my domain.
Yeah. So I would say being entrepreneurial to me means like really caring about a problem. So I don't think an entrepreneur is someone that has an idea. Like I often hear people asking me like, what do you think of this idea? I always ask like, what's the problem first? So entrepreneurs
Right.
don't need to be people that kind of start companies. Entrepreneurs can be people in kind of big nonprofits, can be people in also big corporations that kind of find a new problem that hasn't been solved before and find a unique and innovative solution to solve this problem. It's very broad, but I think that's how I would define what an entrepreneur is.
Right. And so if you're looking across the spectrum now, you have college students or, young people in general all over the world that are doing all sorts of things. Many of them, outside of the United States might look at a place like Stanford and Harvard and say, no, this place is not for me. Like this is like, another planet. There's no way I'll get there. Some people even, within Stanford and within the United States are saying, okay, startup, no way. I'll never have access to these people and these opportunities. What are some of your insights for those people? Because one of the goals for this show is also to expose these really non-linear journeys. And what I've been observing for over 300 guests is that most commonly people didn't expect to reach the success that they've had, but it was through taking risk and being adventurous and entrepreneurial that they actually found themselves in a position where they could enjoy it.
Yeah, that's also a fantastic question. I'd be curious actually to hear from your answer as well on that. But what I think is, until we are 30, we don't. I mean, I'm really privileged to say this. So that's kind of one thing. Like I'm privileged to say all those things that I can say because like once
Right.
you are at Harvard or at Stanford or at TU Munich, you have a certain safety net. So I know that I cannot fall deeper in that because if you're in computer science, you'll always find a job somewhere, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
won't, and you always be able to kind of a little bit support your family. So that's kind of I just want to say that at the beginning. once you have the safety net, so once you reach a certain safety net for yourself, and you need to define the safety nets for yourself. I have a very low bar for a safety net. Some people have a higher bar. But once you reach that, I think in your 20s, you don't have a lot to lose, right? I mean, with 30, you can still become a director at Google, or a director at Facebook, or whatsoever, a partner at a consultancy, and work towards that. But I think until you're 30, I mean, why not just trying out like one thing or two things? You have just like a few shots, and many people say you have a lot of shots in life. You actually don't. You have to kind of commit to something for at least 2 or 3 years, and
Right.
why not taking those risks early on? And once you reached a certain safety net, because as said, opportunity kind of comes up for those people that kind of just like try the kind of not the common way, and that's a kind of a broad advice. But that's how I've been thinking about life so far.
I have to say that I couldn't agree more. I think that while our lives are very nonlinear, we're oftentimes at a point in time where the circumstances that we have now are much more convenient to take those risks, and a deep failure in one circumstance is not equal to a deep failure in another circumstance. The classic example: once you have kids and a family to support, it's a whole different ballgame, right? You can't just say, okay, I'm working on this fun startup and then quitting. But definitely, when you're young, you can go to Uganda, you can try all these different things, especially things that that are moonshot and have little chance to succeed. In your situation, you actually did manage to make them succeed, which is obviously the rare occurrence. The nature of startups is to fail, but I think that's very inspiring, and I have to say that, taking from this conversation, screw it, just do it. For me, that's I'm gonna adopt that mindset for me too. Andrej, I know that we can't speak too much about Lumos and what you guys are actually doing, but what I do want to ask you a little bit is about your experience now as a founder, early stage co-founder in Silicon Valley, with raising funds from some of the top VCs in the world. Walk me through some of the things that either surprised you or challenged you in this experience, because you've founded initiatives before. What's been different this time around?
What surprised me is, number one, how you really need to hone in and create a network for yourself. And coming from a small village in Bavaria, I never knew how big this importance is. But let's say, for example, for VCs. If you send cold emails to VCs, I realize no one will reply. People will say like, yeah, nice. So they will reply, but just like the power dynamics are so much different. So one thing that I learned is just like asking random people to say like, hey, do you know VC? Can you introduce me? Done. And this changed the game. Like just like one introduction changed the whole game. That's kind of the first thing. Second thing, what really surprised me is how much more philosophy there is in the valley, which means like I had sometimes friends over, entrepreneurs, and just because of them, Lumos got successful. Why? Because they just said like, Andrej, this is a blind spot. You shouldn't go that way because of these. I'm like, damn, if I hadn't talked to you, I would have worked on this kind of small problem for like the next 3 months. So to summarize, that's kind of two small things, like kind of creating the network of like getting introduced to people, which was so important. That's kind of the first thing. And the second thing is getting this kind of your own advisory board. You're having your own advisory board of entrepreneurs and people that you respect and that kind of push you. And the last thing I also want to say is, in Germany, recruiting was way easier. Damn, it's so hard in the valley. I'm like, oh shoot, I really underestimated that. It's really, 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 really hard.
Well, so if this can be of any help, if anybody's interested in being a part of this incredible company, please reach out to Andrej. It really is incredible. I got a chance to know a little bit about what you're doing, and I think it's just fascinating. But Andrej, I want to touch on the point that you said about building your own advisory board, because I think it's really understated in a lot of situations, and I think that you said it beautifully. This whole notion of when you're working on something, some people like to keep it a secret. I'm not saying go and broadcast with the world, all the ins and outs of your intellectual property, but building this group of people that you really trust, that you really believe in, not just that they'll keep your secret, but really you believe in their opinion, and being very transparent with them, sharing with them, having them be a part of the journey as a family, internally of the company, and even those dinner side conversations, which could potentially save you 3 months. They could save you a round of funding. They could possibly save you from losing your biggest client. And I've heard this so many times.
And that's maybe a push for your listeners. One thing that people underestimate is like people responding. Like what I try to kind of really kind of I trained the muscle at Harvard, for example, just reaching out to random people. You need to have something, right? You cannot say like, "Hey, tell me about your life story." I mean, you can, because you have a podcast, because that's also something. But I mean, like, if, for example, in what I was really curious about is algorithmic VC when I was at Harvard. So I reached out to many VCs. Just I was curious. I read papers at MIT about like how data science can influence VC, and many people replied, and I built like a small advisory board around that. And then also the government. I reached out to 20 people. Just one person replied, but this one person, again, the success rate wasn't high, but this one person changed my life. So one push is maybe like, think about what you're truly passionate about. Think about like become a little bit of an expert in there, and find those people to just like get advice on something that you're truly passionate about, and then build a relationship, because it really works.
I love it. No, I definitely love it. Thank you so much for spending the time here talking to me. I know how busy you are, and you've been very, very generous with your time, Andrej. Thank you. And I look forward to doing a follow-up episode in September so that we can get to know Lumos a little bit more. And I can't wait to hear more about your journey. But before we leave, I have to ask you for the most important question, which is 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
4 words. Screw it, just do it.
Screw it, just do it. I'll take it. Andrej, thank you very, very much. This was wonderful. And stay safe and stay healthy.
Peace, man. Thanks, man.